Hey, it's John Carlos, and I am here once again with my dear friend
Eddie.
Eddie. Uh, how you doing?
I'm so tired.
From the world or from watching these movies?
Both, actually. I got to tell you, we already kind of touched on it just one-on-one, but haven't really elaborated. This was never really my franchise. And so this is like the first time we've gone through a franchise where I don't absolutely love most of the movies. Although I do have to say, the good was more prevalent, but so was the not so good. So there's that. How about you?
Um, I've never really. How do I word this? Because I own all of them, but I don't like love any of them. Like I like them; they're fine. And there's things about them I like, and I've never bought any of them like full, like a $25 disc. Like I've always, there's things about the franchise I like.
Hmm.
I don't think we even discussed if we're gonna rank them, but man, I would have the hardest time ranking them because each one has its own amount of flaws and the little things that work within them that like trying to put one above the other, like you would be surprised at why I would put one, and it's like, well, there. But you're right. We have only talked so far about things or franchises that we tend to love, whereas Final Destination is something I like. I revisit these movies every few years. I enjoy them. But I'm drinking out of a Freddy versus Jason cup right now. I don't have a Final Destination cup, although I don't know if they make a Final Destination cup. But it sounds like I like this franchise more than you do.
Um, I mean, it's also the thing of like, I mean, I have a sister who you know, and this was always kind of her franchise. My sister, Chris, and no, this has always been kind of her thing. Um, and also, I've had conversations. I've still, I've seen all the films, had conversations about it, about all of the films with people through the years. Confusing conversations because some people tend to favor the flicks that I don't deem so great and the ones that I really, really liked. One in particular. I've had a lot of conversations where it tends to get shit on. So it's a confusing franchise to me because since it's not mine, I don't really understand the draw. I don't want to judge anybody. This isn't going to be about trashing a franchise, at least from my vantage point, but it's about, I mean, I obviously love it less than you do, so you won't either. But there are things that stand out to me, particularly in our social climate right now. And but we'll get to those when we get to them. So you want to just dive in, or?
Yeah, because the one thing that's kind of, we started this with just COVID-19 and staying at home, and
Mm-hmm.
things have gotten worse in the world,
Yeah.
and protests are still going on many weeks later. But at least clear my headspace just enough to like sit down every night, just watch a couple movies, to sit down, for an hour or two out of my night and talk about them with you. But I mean, yeah, I couldn't have sat down and watched 5 movies just about death like 2 weeks ago. And that is one thing about this series is let's say when you look at other franchises that are about like serial killers specifically or about dreams. I mean, this whole franchise is just about like death itself,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of escape from it, and its presence in our everyday lives. And
Inevitability and superfluous kind of battle against.
right, and
It's
fate
not a very
itself.
hopeful franchise. Maybe that's another reason it's not one of my faves because I don't. It's not like I'm turned off by nihilism. Because certain movies that I love are particularly nihilistic. There isn't much hope in them, but there are also movies that I feel like if there isn't any kind of like push and pull between good and evil, or the way we broke down like the paranormal franchise, at least the first one, it was innocence versus like malevolence. If there isn't a battle, if it's just kind of like uh, uh, a hopeless inevitability, it's harder to hook me. It's not impossible though. But yeah, it's a tricky tightrope all of these writers and filmmakers walk whenever they take one of these projects on. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for nihilism. You know, I like the Coen brothers for goodness sakes, and that's kind
Mhm.
of like their whole vibe. But apologizing to anyone watching. I don't know if you can hear the fireworks while I'm talking, but my
Are those
neighbor,
fireworks?
yeah,
It sounds like somebody's like dropping stuff. For me, I don't know.
like farts. Well,
No, no, no.
well, anyway, anyway,
Yes.
LA County for like the last 2 months is just fireworks every fucking night. So
Yep.
there we go. So the first movie, little friend trivia, and it's. I remember telling this to someone who was an X Files fan but didn't know this. But the first movie was originally a spec script for an X Files episode.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and which is then it was rewritten by Glenn Morgan and James Wong into a feature length film. But that initial and they both worked on the X Files. I know James Wong was the director on X Files. Um, but yeah, the original writer, Jeffrey Reddick, wrote the initial script for it, and always gets credit from all the movies later is based on characters by.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
but when you look at it, and even though he reworked it, and then they reworked it in feature length thing, there's still like two FBI agents that show up, and you could see where this probably was Mulder and
Yeah.
Scully beforehand. And
Yeah.
also, it does feel like a very X-Filesy kind of idea for an episode, like Mulder and Scully investigating someone who had a premonition about a plane, and you could see where Mulder would get into it and Scully would, Uh, but anyway, I always appreciated that it's started as an X file.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Actually, and the thing is, I have to say, revisiting it, especially this time, because I hadn't seen it in a while, and I started chuckling immediately. Like, I was really, really happy watching the first movie, for the most part, just because it's so just the opening credits with the score and the death of a salesman and the this is the end by Jim Morrison and the sound effects and the fan of the
Well,
I
this
mean
franchise loves their little clues and their little tee. All the movies love their
and it
teehees.
but it doesn't always land for me. Sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I see what you're doing. Just get on with it. But with this one, I'm just gonna like, I don't know. I kind of fall in love all over again. I don't mean really fall in love, but I just mean kind of like, oh yeah, I remember when this was just one movie that I
Yeah,
rented from Blockbuster. I never
yeah.
saw it in the theaters. And
I love going back to the first movie of any franchise when it's just the one movie. Because the one
mm,
thing that I really realized going back to the first one is that the two starts with the really gory kills where it becomes a splatter movie and everything after
mm-hmm.
that becomes a splatter movie. But that first movie isn't a splatter film.
Mm.
I mean,
It's
the teacher has a somewhat bloody death, but I mean, granted there are deaths, but I would never call that first movie a splatter film.
well, especially the first. I mean, do you even call it kill? I'd call it just like the first disaster. Because I'm chuckling through all of it, even like Devin Sawa's little like, you know, just things are happening. You know, it's just like the departures are clacking behind him, and he's just going, you know, as the camera's like sweeping in on his face.
He's having an eerie feeling, man.
Yes,
But
he
yes,
is, and it works. It works, but I am sitting there going, and I stop. I think once they step on the plane, and he's already kind of established that he thinks something bad might happen, and you see a differently abled guy sitting there in the front row when they walk past. It's just like would have been kind of a fucked up god to take down this plane or whatever they say. And I'm like, yeah, that is pretty fucked up. Oh my god, and I know what's going to happen. And I think I forgot that that happened.
me too.
So yeah, so I'm just like, oh shit. I mean, I just did a lot of oh shit with this first one. And then when it starts to happen, it really starts to happen to me. Like it feels like a disaster. I'm not sitting there going, whoa! I'm really going, oh shit, that's fucking scary. And because of it's almost like like I already mentioned walking a tightrope, and that's what I think Devon Sawa kind of has to do in this whole opening sequence before the disaster. And I think he does it really, really well. I think it's shot really well. So yeah, so I didn't really have any problem with that. And then, I mean, there's Kerr Smith's Carter, who I don't think is anybody's favorite character.
Yeah, he's terrible.
And this is another thing that I think I don't like about the franchise, because he's a trash person, in my opinion. And there's like, he kind of establishes the legacy that is carried on in every Final Destination movie that follows of the trash person character. And some
Right.
movies have more than one, where there's somebody who just has no redeeming qualities that are established in the movie, and you're basically just kind of like hoping for them to die. And that happens in other franchises too, but in this one it's really at worst case scenario, uncomfortable and unsettling just to watch a person behaving that way. Best case scenario, annoying and like, what are you doing on my screen? Go, get off. I mean, especially if you don't even kill them off in a way that's satisfying, which will just jump around. I guess Kerr Smith's character doesn't get killed off in a satisfying way. It's memorable, but you don't. It's the end.
It's a memorable. But it's a cool ass shot to end the movie on.
Yeah,
It's a great beat. Although this is the first time I watched it where I couldn't suspend my well, every time I watched it, I always just, I don't know how I'm trying to word this. This was the first time the logic police ruined the moment for me, because my constant struggle with movies, and I've said this in life. I don't know if I've said it on these recordings or not, but as the older I get, I believe in taking movies on in different ways based on the tone, with the director's intentions. You can read the vibe, read the thing. But if there is one unifying thing that I have, because I don't like to unify as there's only one way to watch a movie. But in this instance, I've always thought, it's something that I came to as I got older, is that tone matters completely. My brain is always wired to look for the logic and the correct truth in things, unless the tone of the story is not about that. And a good director's job lulls me. I always say they seduce me into how I should be kind of taking this journey. A bad director does not seduce me appropriately enough into the universe, and my logic police is going off. And this is the first time where I noticed the sign starts at the top of a building and completely swings. And we know, just based on how gravity works and pendulums work, that it would swing back. So when Kerr Smith gets up and he starts talking, this is the first time I went, why are you getting up? It's going to swing back, you idiot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, by then, though.
But it's such a cool beat. I don't know.
It is. But cool beat notwithstanding, I feel like I love the first 2/3 of this film. I really dig the aftermath after the crash, and they're all at the memorial or the funeral or whatever it is with the big eagle thing, and everybody's kind of making themselves known in a very declarative way. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about how they feel about what happened to them, and it's kind of kitschy, but I appreciate it. I'm still chuckling, in a way. Like, I'm still kind of like, I don't know, I'm chuckling when Sean William Scott is my favorite, actually.
Oh, he's
in
great.
This movie. Oh my God, just his little face this whole time. And the fact that he's the only one who goes up, and you don't know where it's gonna go, and he's just kind of like, so what do you think is gonna happen? I mean, I'm just like, oh, look at you.
I thought he was, say what you want about that franchise, but he was great as Stifler, especially as that type. And carrying on, not necessarily the assholeness, but the confidence of that into other movies, be it a smaller role like in Cop Out, which is really funny, to like the Dukes of Hazzard movie.
Great in that.
He works really well with high ego and confidence. And I forgot how like doofy he is in this.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
Carter, you dick!
Because even just a few years later, he would have been like the Kerr Smith character, like the jock in the Letterman jacket who's like being shitty to people.
Like
But
that
no, he's great.
Stifler. Yeah.
There's a lot of characters I really like in this movie, or at least actors I like in this movie. Amanda Dittmer works
Oh,
great in this.
huh.
There's not much to her, but like, I always feel so bad for her. Why the hell she's with Kerr Smith? Um, but Kerr,
she's got the kill too. Like of like
oh
I'd
yeah,
say of the movie, one of them arguably of the franchise, the bus. Like that's the most infamous.
and if I'm not
Or what?
mistaken,
Yeah.
I think like within the cultural zeitgeist of the last exactly 20 years, that was the first time I recall the stepping in the street getting hit by a bus, which we've seen like hundreds of times since.
Yeah.
But
Or on, even oncoming cars. Yeah, things
yeah,
like
I
that.
really remember like that movie, or at least that beat, because I know like Brad Pitt getting hit by like 5 cars in Meet Joe Black was 2 years earlier. But like the blah 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 wham.
Yeah,
I remember,
declarative statement, inevitable end.
I
Like,
think that was the first one that I can recall.
and that was the best one I think of this franchise. There are others that kind of work, and then there are others where I'm just like, I see what you're doing. Stop. We'll get there. But
Yeah. I really,
'cause,
really,
yeah,
really like Ali Larter in this, and it was refreshing because again, I've seen so much of her work after this, almost in the way Stifler, where between like Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back to
yeah,
Heroes, I have seen like tough, badass Ali Larter. And I
yeah. Oh, she's
forgot
great.
how great I mean, when she's explaining that she like feels a literal connection with him, and explaining like I went off the plane just because not just because I believed you, but like I felt you. And
Hmm.
she, especially in like the scene with Devon Sawa and her in the garage where she's explaining all this, like she is giving so much, and then
Hmm.
he's there.
Well, I mean, also, how
He,
invested should he be? I mean, they got through it together, but he doesn't really know her. She even says it in the script, like, we've gone to school. What I don't know the exact line. I'm not going to get it right. Sorry,
I'm not
sorry.
expecting him to
Final
like
Destination stands, but
fall in love with her or anything. I'm just saying, like, as far as I don't,
I just like the way
it's
he doesn't get what it's about until she explains it to him. The sculpture, when he's just like, what does he say? It's a springy head guy or whatever he
yeah.
says. And
She's like,
and
no, it's you.
I love it because I'm looking at it and I'm like, I see a question mark, like you're a mystery to her, like I'm already like I'm in on it with her. But and I have been. That's the thing. I love that the first time we see her, she's like reading a book, and then later she's the one person at that memorial who's saying what the audience is kind of like, yes, exactly, that's what you should be saying. And all of a sudden we're like team clear.
Well, yeah,
Clear
that's the turning point for me.
rivers. Clear rivers.
Yeah,
That's all.
that's a name.
What can I say? Yeah, sure,
Um,
that's a name.
no, that memorial scene to me, because we very much lay out um, Sean William Scott and his
Billy.
tell me the truth
Billy Hitchcock,
versus
yeah.
first of all, I love all the horror director last names in this movie. I just think it's fun. I think it's super fun, and they keep doing that in some of the other outings in this franchise,
Nice.
which is a nice little thing to keep doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, but Kerr Smith is like, I'm the worst. I don't owe you anything. Fuck
Yeah.
you. Versus,
I'm never gonna die. That's his most infamous line.
I don't agree. I don't agree with it, but I totally believe and understand the teacher who's like, "Get away from me! You scare the shit out of me."
I fucking hate her.
But I understand where you would. I don't like you for doing that, but I understand how certain people. But it's
You're
when
so much nicer than I am because I'm ready to just go like, you're a mess. Get your shit together. You're a fucking adult.
But
Don't
when
treat
Clear,
kids like that. You don't belong in a position of authority around kids. Sorry, go on about Clear.
I don't think surviving a plane crash that was premonitioned by someone is part of like academic training, though. So anyway,
but Jesus Christ,
Clear,
go on.
Clear, when she opens her mouth, she says exactly what I would say, or at least
Exactly.
I hope I would say it. So
yeah, me too.
that's the turning point for her. If anything, also, who's I have a soft spot for is Devon Sawa's buddy.
Todd.
Yeah, because
I have a go ahead, please.
I find that interesting when guys have like that kind of accent, like, "Hey, I'm a guy."
That's
like,
what I
hey.
was going to ask you about.
His
We see his brother and his father in the opening scene, and they have no trace of an accent. They don't say very much, but they say enough for us to like. Do they sit there and talk like this? I mean, I even wrote down one of my favorites. It's just 3 words. It's at the funeral. I bet a gal. It's adorable.
Yeah,
he's a character.
Yeah,
He's from
and
Toronto. I don't know where the accent came from. Go on.
all I know is that he played when he goes up. And again, I don't know why it's all the adults that are like, he had a premonition. Well, fuck him and his weird fucking shit. You don't talk to me more. But when he's just like, hey, and it's very like, hey, I don't want to sound gay or nothing, because it was
Yeah, right.
the year 2000. But it's very like, hey, I don't want to sound like a queer or nothing, but I miss you. But
I
like,
miss you. No homo.
yeah. But he plays the like. I feel so like I really buy with
No,
like, hey, when all this is
I
over,
buy
like you
it.
and me, we're gonna go catch like hey, we're gonna catch a Yankees game or whatever the hell he says. But like
I mean,
I
it
like
would
him
have
in
been
that.
nice if he didn't have to say that, but I'm like, I get it. You're two, teenage boys
I
who
think
are.
he plays it well though. Is all I'm
Yeah, I think
saying.
so too. Both.
My
I think they both do.
Yeah, I have I forgot, or maybe I just never realized, and I don't like spending too much time dwelling on actors being bad, but like Devon Sawa, like 80% of this movie, and I don't necessarily blame him. It could also be directors allowing it to happen, or a lack of direction, or being content. But there are so many scenes where, like, are you being surrounded by death and having visions? Because I sure can't tell that you're any of this is weighing on you in any way,
Really?
aside from
Oh my
just
God.
aside from
Okay.
just like he has an interest in like getting to the bottom of things, and I see that like, but I
Oh.
mean, like there's nothing. I feel like something like this would haunt you a little bit, and I don't see any of that. It kills me when he has the vision of Todd, because like the penthouse gets shredded on the fan
Oh
when he says the
yeah.
word Todd.
Yeah.
So he goes to his best friend's house, and there's ambulance already there, and his dad's talking about how he killed himself.
Yeah.
And Devon Sawa doesn't seem at all like he just found out his best friend killed
Okay.
himself.
See,
And
okay.
moreover, when his dad's blaming him, and he goes, "Whoa! You think that would happen just because to the point where he would kill himself?" And I'm like, "There is no way that you found out your best friend died, and you're just going to be all defensive and like casually throw out your friend killed himself." And I hate when I watch a movie and I start directing the scene in my head, but
Huh.
I immediately started going, "Whoa! If you were gonna really rattle all that off, I imagine you're so caught up in that. Like, I could never see him completing that sentence. Like, I would say, yeah, you did it to the point where like you would kill him, and then you would like stop yourself from saying the words, because then it becomes. And instead, he just
Wow.
like there's at no point do I feel like this character is surrounded by death. He's only interested in like solving the riddle of like how do we stop it.
Okay, see, that's
And
not what I got from him at all. But if you here, finish your thought, please,
well,
because I'll rebut
the
in a
worst scene
moment.
for me is
Yeah.
when Clear finds him sitting alone looking at the stars.
Yes.
And it's like, hey, do you think they're all out there in the plane? And I could see on paper what the scene is and how it should be played. And he goes, do you think they're still out there somewhere, like on that plane? Still on the flight, so and so's brother. And I'm just like, no, dude, you should be haunted that all this is, and seeing more people die one after the other, and then how weird that is, should be taking its toll on you. And you should be like desperate and like really like, and instead it's just, well, I'm on the set and I'm Devon Sawa, and hey, you think they're still out there? Like, it's just delivery for delivery's sake.
Okay. Well, by the time we get there, first of all, I'm like, how the fuck did Clear find him? Is it their link? But
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
doing it again. Sorry. But so I'm already kind of checking out because we're nearing the last third at that point, and things start getting a lot less plausible. And I'm just like, okay, I better just ride the wave because this is. If I try to make too much sense out of it, I'm just not. I'm not going to make it. There's no. I'm just going to be upset. But as far as his reaction to the father, I always thought what was happening to him was he's not just somebody who's surrounded by death. He's somebody who is seeing things and getting a sense of it before it happens. So in a weird way, the shock of discovering that it happened isn't something that can happen to you anymore, especially when you've already kind of had this weird feeling. You've been traumatized by watching all your friends die in front of you. So now you're kind of like moving to survival mode or to protector mode where all you want to do is try and prevent it. Like you're in order for you to survive and in order to keep your sensory apparatus functioning, you have to kind of move to action and move away from emotion. That's what I got from that. And because also the reason why that makes sense to me cinematically is because we do see him break down. It really moves me actually when he returns after he's been questioned and everybody's got together with their parents and he's getting hugged and he's looking over it clear and her folks didn't show up and we don't really know why yet. And then he goes home and it's just an exterior shot of his bedroom. And I think, is it raining? I don't even remember. But he just like walks in. And this is another thing I wanted to comment on. But he walks in and he just starts crying. And he just turns back to his folks and he just embraces them. They just take him in their arms and everything. And it feels very real to me. And it's like it all just kind of hits him. So because he's already had, and we've seen this cathartic moment, this cathartic cry, I feel like you're gonna move to other things. I feel like other directions you're gonna move into are more interesting than just kind of like being affected over and over and over and over and over again. At least it's not like that can't happen, because there is one example in this franchise that I think it works when somebody kind of feels the impact every single time. We'll get there. But that didn't bother me so much as other things. Because one thing that also I really felt, I was really glad we got to return to his room, because one thing I like with just his little Devon Sawa face, even though I thought he really was a teenager, but he was actually like in his 20s. They all were. But I thought watching it, I don't know if it's all because they were shot from like a higher level than an eye level or something, but they looked like teens to me. They looked smaller. They looked, I somehow bought that like they were kids who were just now reaching that point in your life where you can start to really deal with things like life and death, but also where somebody else is still buying your groceries, somebody else is still doing your laundry and buying your clothes and putting you off to school. There was something about it from the beginning of this movie that felt very authentic, as far as like, it didn't feel like 20-year-olds or 20-somethings playing teenagers. I thought that they were these kids living this life. So I don't know, maybe because, I don't know, maybe in light of the exchange he had with Todd, the fact that they're not people who have really kind of learned to have an emotional maturity and really kind of absorb things in that vein. Maybe, and because it's pre 9/11 and stuff like that, there's still this weird carefree, you know, first scene at school in Scream, where the kids are just sitting around discussing death, you know, like it's nothing. There's, I don't know, it didn't bother me as much. What bothers me more, we touched on it. Mrs. What's her name? Luton. Something about her death.
Literally, Valerie Luton. Val Luton. We're doing the full name, not just the last name for this one. Yeah.
Valerie Luton. That's another thing. The names, I might have them, and I might not with this franchise, because there's a lot of characters. Very few carry over from film to film. Oh, and yeah. One of the ones that doesn't even really have a name that I remember, and I didn't look on IMDb to see what he played. I'm just like, Tony Todd. But what else do you need? Yeah. But back to Mrs. Luton. We'll get on Tony Todd in a second. But Mrs. Luton, the thing about her death scene, though, is when it starts to turn, that's kind of like when I start chuckling again. Because this time in particular, what I thought of when she was having her death scene in her home was that first scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
With Roger in the sink?
He keeps trying to prevent things from happening, and it just gets worse. And it's like accidents on top of accidents, and I feel like I'm a terrible person for laughing.
Oh, when the thing falls on the knife?
So fucking funny. Oh my God. Talk for a second, because I have to get myself collected.
I mean, I don't really have.
Oh my God!
I don't really have that much else to say about this. I love the presence of Tony Todd in it.
Yeah.
I do find it interesting that it carries over in every movie. In this, I forgot in the first movie that like wind shows up before almost every death.
Yeah.
And then I was surprised. I'm like, oh, look, there's wind in 2. There's wind in 3. Hey, and like each movie, like never forgot to have like some wind blow. I'm like, that's neat. But I completely forgot in the first movie, and only the first movie, before every death, like the Grim Reaper from the Frighteners shows up behind them, like in the mirror. There's like a giant digital shimmer
Yeah.
that, to me, is a little too on the nose. I don't need
Hmm.
to see like an actual presence in there, so I'm glad they got rid of that element for all the other movies. Like, let the
Well,
things
not. I
just
mean,
fall and be themselves without.
there's inklings here and there that I think work, but in the first movie, I agree. Like anytime there's like a shadowy whatever, I'm just like, oh, for the love of God.
Yeah,
But I
but
do prefer a a a, a weird feeling to a full on. Aside from the first, for the opener for every one of these movies, I do prefer a weird feeling and like a hint, a sign of something happening, than like a full on premonition.
yeah,
That's
no,
where it starts to
I,
turn
I
for
don't
me.
mind all those little premonitions. The one that actually gets me is the bus, where he actually like sees the bus coming in the window, versus
Hmm.
everything else is a
Yeah.
little more subtle.
Yeah,
Uh,
or just the little Todd in the fan, like that kind
yeah.
of stuff. Yeah.
One thing also is, once the franchise carried on, like, okay, so the first movie, and I think the opening sequence. I mean, if you describe the premise to someone, that's I'll never forget. Actually, I saw the trailer for this movie in the theater,
Hmm.
and there was some like basic couple near me.
Hmm.
Sound snobby, but like they're just very. They weren't my people. They were being kind of chatty, and just I didn't care for them. But the Devon Sawa was having his little panic attack. Get off the and Kerr Smith's like, "Oh, the plane's gonna blow up. The plane's gonna blow up." And then the plane blows up, and the glass breaks, and the girl's like,
Hmm.
"Oh my god!" And I'm like, because that's a premise. Like, that's a cool idea.
Yeah.
So, but it's not until I think the second movie where they really, because like people have a fear of flight, of going
Yeah.
on planes and stuff. So I get it. Second movie, and the rest of the franchise, I think, really expounds on not just having an opening sequence that people can relate to, but let's start doing all the
Hmm.
deaths. Like, people are afraid to go to the dentist. People are afraid of LASIK eye surgery. People don't like acupuncture. Let's really hone in on the dangers of, like, I felt this way, like when you get a haircut and they're just right by your ear or like right by your eyes. Like, they're
Hmm.
really gonna. But the first movie, like, no one has like a fear of their kitchen, or like a fear of
No.
turning towards your shower. Like, the way people die, no one's afraid of, like, oh, the closest thing is the car stopping on the train tracks.
Hmm.
Because
I mean, there.
I mean, even to this day, I always get like, whenever I drive over the train tracks, I'm like, what if the arms went down right now? But like most of the
But
deaths,
yeah,
that, and I'd say the down power line.
the
But
only
that first
thing.
movie is more concerned with telling its story than it is about preying on people's fears of whatever.
Sure. A kill that's like really emblematic, and this is like the last thing I'll say about the first one, is about just kind of like the back and forth of it all for this whole franchise is like literally Todd's death, because the first time he picks up a razor and he cuts himself, I'm like, ooh. And then and so I can feel that I'm there. I'm visceral, it's visceral. It's like it's happening to me. But then the death water starts like chasing his feet, and I'm not scared of death water. And then from the toilet, and then the nail scissors in his nose, and I'm just kind of like ooh, 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 and I'm wincing. But then right after that, he slips, he falls into the tub, and the cord wraps itself several times
Times.
around his neck. And I'm like, you lost me again. I'm not scared of that. And then and then the fact that like he's panicking, and being in a situation and panicking that you can't get yourself out of, and you can't see a clear way out of, like, okay, that's scary. But at the same time, my survival instinct kicks in these movies. And the thing is, it's most effective when you've done everything right, or at least done nothing wrong, and it happens anyway. Like, there's no preventing it. The thing is, I look at him slipping, his feet slipping at that end of the tub, so he can't like get himself out of, and I'm like, well, bitch, there's like two like armrests or headrests or whatever. There's like a rim around this tub. Just put your hands on that and just lift yourself up.
I didn't
Don't
even.
use your feet. Lift your first foot
Well,
up and get it out of the tub.
isn't he struggling to, like?
He is, but the thing is, like, if he would stop trying to whatever the fuck he's doing, if he would stop with all this, or even just
Right.
do it with one and put one arm on the side of the tub and just try to lift himself a little bit to give himself a little slack, and then it's like those are the ones that when I can see a clear way out of it.
Right.
That's when I'm like, oh,
But
okay.
it's
So, and that death is like this franchise for me.
well, it's easy. It's easy to apply. It's easy to apply calm logic when you are the outside observer. You know,
Yeah. There are others.
But
We'll
yeah,
talk about them as we get there. But okay.
well, let's get to two, because two
Yeah.
is to me. Oh, okay. So we're gonna have a difference of opinion on this one.
Say what you're
Uh,
gonna say.
although it hasn't, although at age 39, going on 40 soon, it isn't as fun as I remember it. But
Okay.
I remember, again, the thing about this franchise is, even when I say like I like two more, I get that there's a lot of things wrong with two. And to me, and some of these movies are slightly different. That's hard to even compare them. Like, two does the thing where, like, you know what? Let's go big with kills. Let's give them the gore. Let's get a little fun with it. Let's make it a little more of a guilty pleasure. Um, but there's little things, at least in my early 20s, I liked about this right off the get-go. I like the fact that the characters are adults. I just preferred that to teenagers. I just liked watching grown up. Oh, listen to you.
Go on.
I like that it became a splatter film. I think the kills in this movie are freaking awesome. It's one of my favorite things about this is I think the kills are gas. Um, Directed by David R. Ellis, who I think just died like 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, I don't know.
Interesting, because the directors of one came back for three, the director of two came back for four, and they're very complimentary of each other.
Wow, that makes sense now. Okay, keep
Oh
going.
yeah, like four is like a much worse version of this. And but man, do I have some problems with this movie? At least within the plotting of it.
Uh-huh.
I'll just say here's my biggest problem with it. You could here the characters, they're in a lineup to get onto a freeway. They
Or
escape
highway, yeah.
Or a highway, yeah. Much later in the movie, we find out that each one of them is a butterfly effect result of characters, and each one is related to a specific character from the first movie. So
Yeah.
that if they had died when they were supposed to, they would have died originally. So by them being saved, it also saved them. So now death is coming for them, which I call bullshit on, because the whole movie was functioning perfectly fine without that bit of information. It's dropped like 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through. It was working perfectly fine as a movie about people who survive a freeway accident, and our connective tissue is we went and found Clear and she's helping us out. There's your movie. This just felt like a desperate attempt to like connect it to the first movie more, and it serves no purpose. The only thing that even comes up is they realize, oh, well, that's why Death's killing us in reverse. And I'm like, whatever, that's it. You were related to the characters in the first movie, so he's killing you guys. That makes no sense. If anything, if you wanted to make your own movie, that's called Final Destination 2, about let's say you don't franchise it by having a big opening sequence. I know that's what we established, but if you just made a movie about random people getting killed off, and then we find out they're all related to the people from the first movie, that's a story. Or you have characters who survive a highway accident and they work clear, and that's a story. But this is just a desperate attempt to make it feel like a part two in some way, and I think it's lazy and it's dumb. Yeah, that's my biggest beef with it. I think.
Okay, I have three kind of all-encompassing things.
Go for it.
And I think there are specific examples that I can present for each one, but we'll see how deep we go.
Okay.
So the first one for me, I wrote it about right after their interaction with Tony Todd. I just wrote, nobody really does anything worthwhile in this movie. In that we have a protagonist who I would dub kind of the anti-final girl. For all we know, she survives. Like we don't see her or her beau.
That's one of the interesting things about this movie is it ends with two survivors.
Yeah,
like they succeed in essence. I was going to get to that, but yeah, they succeed in the thing.
But also they succeed at nothing else other than their own survival. They cause the death of the kid with the pigeons. They cause God, what were the other ones that I had? They get Justina Machado, a pregnant Latin woman, put into jail for her own safety when she went into labor, like, you, oh my god, oh, I'm so mad. And then they found out, they thought they knew something about this Dr. Kajarian, I think is the name. And so they decide they have to stop her because she's gonna kill the baby or kill T.C. Carson's character, Eugene. I think the sole black man in this entire movie, and aside from Tony Todd. And in preventing her from going in, they don't really do anything. The baby's fine, but they spent the whole movie running around, our two protagonists and Allie Larder, when she finally decides for some reason to help them. It's the weeniest reason to motivate her to leave her padded cell and help a girl she does not know, who called her a coward, who flips off the camera when she leaves like a fucking baby. And then like 5 minutes later, she's reading an article and decides she's gonna go help her. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this movie? And because you took a character I liked.
I only like it for the kills, if I'm being honest.
Right, no, you took a character I liked. I liked Clear. I liked the idea that she was coming back, even though she's apparently still bleaching her hair in a sanitarium or wherever the fuck she is. And she goes out and she doesn't help either. She doesn't do anything. They just kind of stand around and judge the people who won't believe them and cause deaths, or at most curb them momentarily. And yet Allie Larder was brought back basically to die, and spoilers, and the two people who I have not found any reason to empathize with, because that's another thing that I don't like about this movie. I feel like it's just loaded with toxic masculinity and inept leadership. The sheriff guy, I remember, he's one of the only things I remembered from this movie because I watched it eons ago. And I remember thinking he was cute and just kind of concentrating on that to carry me through, because I didn't like it the first time I saw it either. And this time watching it, I don't even like him because, and again, maybe this is just topical, but I mean, he's a state trooper who I basically see, because I know he's gonna end up with the leading girl, everything he does to find her feels creepy. Like, down to the fact that, like, he goes when he's off the clock. He already tried to call her, got her father, and her father said that she was asleep, so he didn't leave a message like a human being or a number to ask to be called back. He goes to her home with the information that he acquired because he's a fucking state trooper, he's a cop, he's got access, like, looks through her window when nobody answers the door. She just kind of shows up like, what are you doing here? He's like, I tried calling last night and your dad said you were asleep. I'm like, well, leave a fucking message, you piece of shit. Oh my God. And every time he listens to her, even like right after the accident, he's asking her questions. He's kind of gazing at her, and you're led to believe the first time you're watching the movie that maybe it's because she's got this weird feeling, and maybe he has a weird feeling too, and maybe they're linked like Clear and Alex were in the first movie. But now I'm just kind of like, oh, you're just digging on her, like, ew. You're just kind of like, wow, she's pretty and she's pretty fucked up. Like, I mean, I don't like it. I don't like the function of their relationship. I don't like that. And then I don't like the fact that, what was the third thing? Oh, major flaw with this movie. The characters with this movie seem to be more rooted in their identifying characteristics. Like, this is the first time this really kind of happens. This is why I don't like that they're not teenagers, because they're not kind of like, they don't know each other. They're just kind of like victims of happenstance. So there's no kind of shorthand they have with each other. There's no dynamics that they already have established to play on. It's not like, okay, we're the work friends, like we're the cool friends, we're the friends who like meet at our locker before, we have lunch with each other every day. But that's the person who I know his name and I've known him since like 4th grade, but I've never spoken to him. So it's just these random people, and so they, instead of like playing off of their situation, or like their shared situation and the different ways that they react to it, or their relationships with each other, it's off of these like I'm the busy businesswoman, I'm the maternal one with a son, and that's all I am, and I mean, you just go well, I'm the stoner guy. I'm the, you know, like, I mean, you just go, every one of them has like one of those identifiers that you can
They're
choose.
they're
And it
definitely
fucking pisses me
caricatures.
off.
They are
Huh?
caricatures in this movie, not
Yes.
characters. Yeah.
So I don't identify with any of them, except the only one who I really kind of liked was T.C. Carson as Eugene, just because of the way he didn't believe it at the beginning. He's just kind of like, well, apparently something happened, and oh my god, you know, and the way he breaks it down, just kind of like, well, he's kind of charming and funny. Like, I mean, and it makes sense. I mean, that's fair. People are telling you that this shit's happening, and even if it happened before, yes, but like, you could be crazy, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody.
Kerr Smith goes, no, 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 fuck this. And then that guy goes, nah, fuck this. And in the third movie, Texas Battle's like, no, fuck this. Like every movie has to have someone going, no, no, no.
But the difference
But
between T.C. Carson,
he's
yeah,
less of an asshole. But I definitely,
yeah.
before he gets in the elevator, I'm like, I've had enough of this guy.
Well, what pisses me
And
off is
then
after the
it takes
elevator.
the elevator to get him to, well, actually, say, you know, I'll just say this. It's not until, we'll get to 3 in a moment, but
Yes.
at least in the elevator scene, when that girl gets her head, the mother gets her head lopped off,
Uh-huh.
when he's like cowering and the camera's pushing him, I'm like, that's how you react when someone fucking dies in front of you. It took
Sure. It
a
doesn't matter
move,
how you
it
know
took a
exactly.
movie and a half for us to react like Stifler gets his head lopped off, and people are, this is how you should take things.
I
This
like
guy,
that. I
this guy.
agree. I agree. Right up until that point, I'm actually kind of with him. The problem I have is the aftermath. Once he breaks out of the elevator and sees a gun, grabs it, only a black man other than Tony Todd in this movie sees a gun, grabs it, and points it at the white people. An immediate threat, and coming out of nowhere. All of a sudden, he's the Carter. At least we know. I mean, I don't like Carter in the first movie, but at least we know he's a prick from the beginning, and he's consistent. Except for the end, I don't really understand why they're all hanging out together, other than the fact that they survived. But with this one, it really bothered me. I was just kind of like, Eugene, you didn't, the writers and everybody, you didn't earn this moment. And I don't know if you really thought about what you were doing in this moment, what you were saying socially, like, but it bothered me. And then I've talked about toxic masculinity. Like, I thought about the punk kid in the gas station telling Clear to suck on my junk, biatch, and she does
Biatch.
nothing, and he
Yeah.
doesn't die. Nothing. It goes not rewarded, but basically survival in these movies is a reward. So that gets
Yeah.
rewarded. And I think about the hook man in the elevator who smells the
Yeah.
mom's hair. He gets to live too. What the fuck? And this is where, again, if it's nihilism you're after, and if it's just not about reward and whatever, then that's fine. But the problem is the protagonists treat their survival like a reward. And every time they think they walk around telling people what to do, and it pisses me the fuck off, because the one person who I actually identify with in this movie is Justina Machado, because when they run in and they're all chaotic after she's like, I just need to know if the baby's fine. I just need to know if the baby's fine. And she's just like, where the hell are they?
Yep.
Every moment. That's not the only moment, but that's the greatest. That's how I feel about this movie. I'm just like, exactly. I would have much rather watched your movie, Justina, because because number one, representation. Also because she's the best actor, given the she does the best with what she's given. Every moment she's on screen, I'm like, I'm with you. I get exactly when she gets pulled over by the cops. She's like, what did I do? I mean, it works. It works for me. This is the beginning of, at worst with these movies, worst case scenario, me identifying with the people who are on the sidelines of the movie and not with the core group, the people who are being affected by this movie. I'm just like, why aren't we following the people on the sidelines? Because one last person I'll mention in the second movie that I identify with a lot is the kid who's trying to help the busy business lady Kat out of the truck when she's got I think the log, is it, over her legs, and he's trying to pull it out, and she's even instructing him on how to do it and everything like that. And she's like, okay, just do it, or something. So he does it, and it hurts her. Makes sense. But he's just a kid. He's trying to help, and she starts screaming at him. She even calls him Jethro because he's just some kid who lives out in the boonies. And he's just like, I'm sorry, Dad! And the kid, I feel more sympathy with the people who have to deal with the fucking protagonists and even the side protagonists in this movie. So that's why I don't like it.
So I mean, when it comes to like the vicious humor of the movie, it doesn't work on like that's the kid who gets blown up at the end because he gets saved. To me, his that beat's funny, but it's also
No reward. He's the only one
yeah.
who tried to do anything and actually, and didn't succeed, but felt bad about it, asked for fucking help.
Mm-hmm.
And how does he get rewarded? He gets blown the fuck up, and he's a punchline at the end of the movie, and I don't like it.
All 5 of these movies, the problem with Final Destination as a franchise is that there is so much potential to play with theme.
Uh-huh.
And as a whole, the franchise maybe hints at some of it in 1 and 3, but for the most part doesn't live up to the potential of what you could be saying with your movie, what you could be saying about death, inevitability, and fate. And this movie really does just lean back into like, let's kill some people real good. Let's just have like a mean business lady, and she's dead. But I don't know. Again, as someone who doesn't, I don't hold the franchise to such a degree that bothers me. I can just have fun with all of these. I can just watch this movie and enjoy the deaths,
Sure,
because some of the deaths are holy. Probably my favorite kill in the whole franchise is in this one, and it's when the little druggy guy is standing out in the field, and the cigarette ignites the gas, which blows up the van, which blows the wire fencing through him and splits him into thirds. And just, as like a horror junkie and effects and makeup and gore junkie, the fact that like, I don't know if you've ever watched the making ofs on that, but they built a 2-part, it's legs and then a torso that goes up to like his ribs or like his nipples. And that's filled with guts. And then the legs are like puppeteered. And then that's against a green screen. And then it's the actor wearing a green screen from like the nipples down. So he's filling in where the rest of the puppet is. And then like on action, like he just falls over as the puppet buckles and the guts fall out. I'm just like, oh my God, like nothing like this is happening in 1. But like 2 has some really gnarly, the lady's head gets lopped off an elevator and the blood just comes out. I mean, the airbag and the pull through the face. I don't know. I'm an easy mark sometimes.
I'm all for the extravaganza of gore and whatnot. We'll touch on some that are coming, but in this one, none of them kind of paid off because I think I'm also too attached to narrative and to interactions between characters. Because you're talking about the stoner guy, and all I could think about was what happened to him before, or not what happened to him, but what he did before. It's supposed to be a touching moment. It even moves like my sister, who's who likes this franchise. And I'm sorry if it sounds like I'm shitting on your movie, because I know that for quite a few people who I've spoken to about the Final Destination franchise, this is their favorite. I've spoken to a number of millennials. Maybe it's changed, but when I used to work with millennials, when millennials were still really, really young people, they would champion 2, and I would just be like, why? And they would give me things like, well, they bring Clear back, and I'm like, yes, and do nothing with her. But I mean, it's like shit like that. And they also like the opening, and I'm like, it doesn't work for me. But I guess again, it's like whatever.
The
it's not my
opening's
franchise.
Awesome. Doesn't work for you? I love the opening.
No, because it's too. I don't know. It's just it's fine. It's fine.
I think it's a good time, but yeah.
It doesn't work for me.
Just fun fact: for a long time, 2 was my favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, and I wonder if people felt that way then still feel that way, and
sense of humor behind the deaths. I really like that ending beat.
What bugs me about the stoner guy? Before I want to close the book on this. Okay. Just the stoner guy. What bugs me about him? That scene that's supposed to be touching with him and Kimberly is the main girl, right? He asks her to go clean up all of his dirty shit so his mom, it won't break his mother's heart. And even when I hear that line, I'm kind of like, oh. But what I don't like about it is basically like, the other side of it is, okay, so basically you're a lazy shit who's asking a stranger you don't know, a lady too, to go clean up everything that's disgusting, that your mother would find disgusting in your apartment because you didn't have the foresight to do it yourself. Like, it kind of pisses me off.
I mean, in theory, you could say he could have asked the cop or anyone else, but I think he knows that she's the last one on the list, so she's the one most likely to be able to help.
He just knows that she's dying after him.
Right.
I mean, I think that's their exchange.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, I go before you, right? Or something like that. And it's supposed to be, again, it's just like the moments that are there, I can see what they're there for. I get it. But I mean, I get it with my head. I don't feel it. It doesn't send me and make me want to like return multiple times. But that's just me.
Sure.
It's an opinion. If this is your movie, by all means, please leave comments because I want to know. Like, and Giancarlo's here. I interrupted you too. Okay.
there are interesting things about it. I won't say that they're good or bad, but like, what's his name again? The token non-white
Eugene.
movie? Yeah, Eugene. I think Eugene tries to, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. It seems like a bigger deal is made of that when they try it in the fourth movie, and I'm like, bitch, we already did that in 2. Like, all right.
Yeah.
A few of the movies, the first one sets up a very simple idea of if someone intervenes and prevents someone from dying when they're supposed to die, they are skipped. And then we find out by the end of the first movie that the list just comes right back again. This one tries to do something, and some of the other movies try to do something a little different with it, and I'll appreciate the idea of if the only thing that could stop the death of life, whatever, is new life, which is a pickup from something in Final Destination 1 that was cut out. I don't know how much you know about the deleted scenes from Final Destination 1 and the original.
No, I don't remember.
There was a scene where Devon Sawa and Clear are on the beach, or out there, they're hanging out, you know, and do you think they're still up there in the plane somewhere, in that somewhere? Originally, the scene kept going. And they lean in and they kiss and we fade out, but they bone, they get it on the beach. And there's a deleted scene where she's pregnant. And then there's a whole different ending where Devon Sawa died. The movie tried to bite off more than it could chew. Because on paper it sounds interesting, but like test screening audiences weren't having it, and watching the scene, I'm like, you're not shooting this and handling it right. But
they were like, the movie's over.
But she does in fact give birth to his son or his kid. I don't remember if the baby's gender is mentioned, but but there's a line about like the only thing that can stop the death is new life. And I feel like the producers and all that remembered that and kept that line for the second movie, but in a different context. So so this actress you like, she's having a baby. Anyway, the idea is that they think they all fucking beat it. They're so happy because she had the baby, and then it turns out like, oh no, we're fucking wrong. It's actually not that at all. Turns out like if someone dies and then you bring them back, that's the new life. And I have a hard time swallowing the whole like, oh yeah, no, so I'm just gonna go drown myself in the fucking ambulance and you just come save me. Because that's almost like a cheat. I know that they're cheating death anyway, but it feels like too much of a cheat.
Yeah.
But through that, that is how they defeat death. And it's the only movie in the franchise where like 2 people succeed in the thing that never happens again.
And they're the 2 that I'm the least likely to want to succeed.
Yes. And then funny enough, because the third movie did like a thing, I know New Line was doing this a lot. They did it with Harold and Kumar go to Guantanamo Bay, and they did it with Final Destination 3, where they filmed all these scenes so that you can do the choose your own adventure version of the movie.
Yes.
And in one of the scenes that's featured in the alternate ending of 3, you find out that our 2 heroes from 2 died in a wood chipper. That's not the theatrical canon, so it doesn't count for me.
No, I'm glad you brought that up too.
But I'm sure you're happy that they died in a wood chipper.
I wish they really had.
I think it's so sad that Devon Sawa, like a brick, just fell on his head.
A fucking brick!
What a horrible way to write out a character.
Fuck if I were Clear too, I'd be like, everything we went through, and a fucking brick. Like, where's that scene? No, but the whole franchise is all about like, well, you're walking down the street and this bucket fell off a ladder and this and then a brick fell on his head. So like whatever. But I do find I'm not every movie starts
this is the first time that we go away from just, and every movie does it to a different degree.
Yeah.
We're not just going to have the clues. Now she's going to have like actual like visions of like the POV of stuff. And this is more,
No.
and it's funny because this and what they do in 4 are the two I like the least, and they're both David R. Ellis movies. I do like that they mention to the gang, because the first movie they do a really, again, the first movie also paces out the fact that this tragedy happened, and now we've been collected by the police, and we need to ask you guys right away for our initial investigation, which is why we're detaining you and trying to get some facts. This one, at least, also they survive. There is an initial meetup, but I like the fact that at least the cops like, hey, we're gonna get together at my apartment and hash this shit out because we heard about what happened a year ago in flight,
Right.
180, whatever the fuck.
Do you know I got through this whole franchise without realizing that 180 was like a 180-degree turn?
Yeah, I never thought about.
I'm not that bright.
I'm not that bright either. But yeah,
I was just kind of like sitting. I was doing dishes, last night, and I was just kind of like 180. Oh,
but
ding. Go
I
on.
don't know if I'm dumb. I never thought about that till right now.
Yeah.
But
I'm right there with you.
So they're having a meeting at the apartment, which, by the way, like the mom, I remember thinking like, if my fucking son just died, I don't know if I'd go to a goddamn meeting.
Oh my God. Kimberly even asks her, Nora, is something wrong or what's wrong? And I'm like, her fucking son died!
I think she's just like, I need like a Xanax or something like.
No, she's just like, she actually says like, I lost my husband, like,
like
so
4 years
in
ago,
this predicament. Now I've lost my son. And I'm just like, and it's the wrong line, first of all. I fault the screenwriter because you don't ask a woman who, I wrote it down. You don't ask a woman who just lost a child that day. She's still wearing the clothes.
Yep.
You don't
no
ask
costume
her,
change.
You okay?
No, again, I don't go to this movie for good writing. I just go to it for kills and a general vibe. But I do appreciate that at the meeting, they're like, oh, by the way, she saw these little clues. Be on the lookout for clues. You might be able to see them too. And sure enough, little stoner guy sees the little claw thing. And I'm like, I like that other people are seeing this too. And he's like bringing other people. It's just little things. But I mean, I'll leave you with this. I think the death scenes are fun, but I do think it's funny. I think this one was the first one to really, I think this movie is the first one to do the fake out. Because there's two kinds of kills now, starting with 2 forward. Everything goes on for much longer than just, here's some water, and then I slipped. Everything goes on for a much more Rube Goldbergian amount of time. And you either have this is happening, and this is happening, and this is happening, and then bam, it all leads to something. Or we have this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, and never mind. Walk over here, bam! Psych! The fake out. And now
that you've dropped your guard, here's the thing.
But of all the fake outs, this movie has the first fake out, and I still think it's the best because it's needlessly dumber, which is why I love it. He's getting the drill, and the birds are hitting the window, and then he leaves, and then the nitrous goes up, and the oxygen goes off, and then the thing lands in his mouth, and he can't breathe, and then we do all that just to have him leave the doctor's office. And it's not that he's leaving, and we know the vision was about birds. It's the fact that our 2 hero characters go, the birds! And he goes, the birds!
Pigeons! Yeah, and he runs.
And I've never seen a teenager of his age get excited to just go, wee, pigeons! But he runs over like a toddler would. To go wee.
I wonder if he was written to be younger and they just couldn't get a kid that young.
Oh my God.
Needed. But I will say
again, the glass and the way his knees buckle and everything splatters is it's great.
You actually brought to mind 2 things that I want to bring up that I think are actual pluses with this movie. They are minute, but I like them. One concerns the kid when he's in the dentist chair, and it's just the tear.
Oh yeah.
Because it made me think about my own times when I'm like sitting there, You've completely relinquished control. Those are my favorite kills in this entire franchise, are when you have to relinquish control, whether it's to a giant automobile or device or to another human being that is, you know, responsible for putting you into a contraption, and you're subject to whatever that machine or whatever, you know, fate decides is going to happen to you. And laying there with the tear just reminded me one time when I was having something done. I think I was having my teeth drilled or something. And honestly, I was a young boy. I honestly don't remember if I was crying or if I just teared up, because sometimes it's a hot light. I'm going to do it now. There's a hot light directly in your face. You don't want to close your eyes unless they gas you or something like that. I just want my eyes open because I want to kind of keep track of like where people are and what they're doing, so I know when to brace myself, when to do that. So my eyes had been open for a long time. Maybe I was crying because I was uncomfortable. I don't know. But my eyes were watering up and a tear came down. And this dentist has his hands in my mouth. And he asks me, "Why are you crying?" And I'm just like, you know, I can't answer you, you piece of shit. But he was so upset with me. And the thing is, I honestly don't remember, was I crying or were my eyes just watering? Either way, I do both a lot.
My eyes water all the time. And Tracy's like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "I'm not. It's just watering."
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was gonna be. Wait, you said you had two things about the movie. Was that?
Yes. The other thing isn't that moment, but you talked about the shadow creature in the first movie and how kind of lame it is. I agree. In this one, though, there was a moment where she's like, I think it's Kimberly, laying in bed, and she's just kind of like looking at the ceiling, and a car goes by, I believe, and she just sees the branches cast shadows on the ceiling, and they start to look like hands reaching. Part. And I was just kind of like, that's pretty fucking cool. Okay, like small devices in this movie, tiny, minute moments, but I'm just kind of like, okay, I like that. And those were two of them. You were saying?
Oh, just one little tiny little thing, but because there's not a lot of character in this movie. But I do appreciate when the kid's going to the dentist and he turns to his mom, not his buddy, his mom. He goes, "Hey, if I wake up, my pants are unzipped, you know, we're suing or whatever." But I love that her reaction is like,
she's shocked but laughing. Yeah,
she's great.
It's right up there with Dee Wallace going after hearing penis breath in E.T. and going, "Oh yes,
exactly." So I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
She was a good actress. I liked the mom. I liked Nora. Yeah, I liked her.
Now, one of the things that you mentioned is the lack of control. And that really is a good segue to 3, because 3 was a movie that I is expecting while on the journey to dislike the first time. And the more I kept going, the more I'm like, yeah, this is wrong and this is wrong, but here's all the ways you're succeeding. And as time goes on, it's a movie that is always just, in my estimation, does, while doing some things wrong, also does quite a lot right to put this pretty high up in the franchise for me.
I concur.
As far as if I can be negative upfront, I like the idea of your heroine being someone who is a control freak, who is struggling with not just the death, but the inability to control and save others. But to have someone turn to her in the first minutes and goes, "Hey, you're a control freak, which is why you don't want to go on this coaster, because you can't control things." And then later in the movie, she's like, "I know I'm a control freak." And I'm like, yeah, could we have had a rewrite? Could someone have given like a note about like show don't tell, and like, can we just, because there's a lot of Fisher Price my first, well, you know, because I'm such a control freak.
I think what helps that for me is the fact that we went back to kind of a dumb teen movie, and I liked that. I thought it worked better for the first movie than not having it in the second movie, because even the characters who are teens, except for whatever the kid's name is, Jethro, the one who, you know, gets, you know, disaffectionately referred to as Jethro, he's the only teenager who I really like in the second movie. But in the third one, like, I rented all 3 of them to see them. And I remember the third one I rented, I do remember having that weird choose your own adventure thing, but I watched the theatrical release first just to kind of get a sense of the movie. And I liked it so much that I went back right after and watched the choose your own adventure and literally played out every scenario I could. And I think I even kept it overnight and watched it again the next morning. This was back in the days of Blockbuster when you had a physical, you know, DVD or videotape like in your hand. I think it was DVD at that point. and I watched all the special features, and I got to learn the name of this actress who impressed the shit out of me, Mary
Mary
Elizabeth
Elizabeth
Winstead.
Winstead.
Oh my God, this was my baby's first Mary Elizabeth Winstead movie for me. And I was just kind of like, okay, she's so fucking good. I hope I just get to keep seeing her in shit after this. And so far, my wishes have been granted. And watching it again, you know, you're always kind of skeptical because I hadn't seen it in a few years, because I think I saw it like, you know, mid 2000s or something. And coming into again, she's still solid for me. She's one of the core things for me about this movie, but there are other things that we'll get into. This was my favorite for a long time. It's not anymore because I feel like this most recent viewing, again, in light of certain things bothered me. And I don't think just in light of certain things, I think it's just getting older too. Sometimes you just, like, you know, the way you described watching Sydney in the first Scream movie, making, you know, bad decisions and stuff like that, and watching it as an adult and going, no! I have the same kind of thing with certain instances in this movie where I'm just like, did we really have to, you know? But that didn't bother me because it lent itself to the kitschy, dumb teen movie milieu. So
I'm right there with you as far as happy to have teens back, because I think this movie also does it. I don't know. I like these kids more.
She's just trying to get attention.
No, but this
and
was
she's
also
out of
my
arm's reach,
first.
so I can't do anything. Yes, sorry, go on.
No, I was right there with you. Like, she is great, and within, I think, 2 years after this, she was in Grindhouse and Live Free or Die Hard. And I'm like, Final Destination girls and stuff. Great.
Yeah.
No, I instantly learned her name from watching this one movie. So,
yeah. Yes.
And she is my favorite heroine or hero in any of the movies. She gives me everything I wanted from Devon Sawa in the first movie. I remember watching it this time going like, this is how you react when death happens around you. This is how she is visibly disturbed by things. She is upset by things. She is saddened. She is stressed out. And I like the fact that even though this is the first movie that does what I consider like the shortcut, which I'm not terribly fond of, but 4 does it far worse. So I'm better with this one, where they survive the incident and then, I looked up on the internet that this happened in Flight 180, and apparently right after it, people died. And apparently people say that if you skip the thing and now we're good to go. Now there's the rules. Let's get to the deaths. At least when he's telling her this, it's like raining and she's not ready to hear it, and like it's upsetting. Like at least people. Whereas in the 4th movie, they're just fucking reading it, and everyone goes, "Okay," and then we go with it. Whereas in this one, but what I'm getting at is, besides, she's initially upset about losing her boyfriend and surviving the roller coaster incident. Then she's even more upset about not only other people dying, but once she learns what could or couldn't be happening, and she calls the 2 girls, like she's already thinking about it. But then each person they don't save, first of all, when people die in front of her, she acts upset about it because it would be upsetting. What a novel concept into your 3rd movie. Of your movie about death. But also, it's when Texas Battle, I still can't get over the fact that the guy's name is Texas Battle. But when Texas Battle dies in the gym, she the way they wrote her, like, she comes to the logical, she asks the questions that I feel like I would ask, or that your character should ask, where she's like getting to that point about like, why me? Like, why am I seeing these visions?
I like that too. Yes.
Oh my God, it's so great. I think they barely hint at it in 4. Like, why are we having these visions? I don't know, whatever. But like the very existential thing of like, why am? And there's no answer. Like, just like in life, there probably wouldn't be an answer. But I like the fact that she is having trouble dealing with it, and that she asks about it. It makes, like, this is kind of what I would have wanted out of a first movie.
There are a few moments like
her
this.
journey.
Yeah, there are a few moments like that for me in this 3rd movie, because there's, of course, the asking why me. There are a lot of scenes with her and Kevin that they get to really build on this relationship, and it has a progression. It has each scene. They're never in the same place, like from scene to scene. And I love the fact that I love the antithesis between the two of them afterwards. I even love what a prick he is in the beginning. I mean, he full on takes a photo underneath a girl's skirt and thinks it's funny.
And I
And
love
I
that later when
understand.
they see the picture, he's fucking embarrassed about it.
Yeah. And I mean, that's one thing about Kevin, played by, I have his name here somewhere. I'll find
That
it.
guy.
Anyway, that guy. But Kevin, as a character, because he was also in Halloween Resurrection, and I'm so glad he got to be in a better movie and do a better job. But Ryan Merriman is his name. But he really grows up in this movie. Like, you literally watch him almost become like a superhero by the climax of the movie. But I love, as far as their interactions, I love when she calls him at the funeral and she says, I'm with Jay. Or she texts him, I can't remember. But he goes over and he sees that she's at Jay's grave, his best friend and her boyfriend. And they talk about not feeling their spirits. I mean, this is what ensues after trauma. And again, for them to reach this point with two very capable actors who were making me buy it the entire time, even when it gets a little sketchy, like taking out the photos and showing, like, you know, a shadow on the Twin Towers and everything, like, I still don't like that. But it's
Yeah.
but as far as like their experience, as far as their trauma, as far as characters, and like the thing that I tend to kind of like really hook into, I love how much I love watching them. And I love how palpable and how plausible it all seems. Also, the fact that we touched on a lot of stuff, but I love the fact that, okay, in answer to your kind of Devon Sawa thing, because this is the reason I don't have a problem with Devon Sawa also, is because the first movie, everybody is blaming him. Everybody is suspecting him. He has to, for survival, this is just how I see it, how I read it, take a defensive stance. He can't believe that it's his fault, because if he does, there's no movie. He's just going to collapse into himself and fall into depression or whatever it is he's going to do. So he's going to like move. He's going to go to the head. Whereas with what I love about with Mary Elizabeth Winstead is with what is her character's name? Shit. What's her fucking name? Wendy. With Wendy.
Yes.
Good. It's a good name for her too. She looks like a Wendy. But with Wendy, no one is blaming her after the accident, and the people are even being kind to her. Even like those two girls, the two, girls who introduced to be really kind of shallow and everything like that. And even though they're doing it and they walk away congratulating themselves for it, at least they're making an effort. At least they're reaching out and saying, like, do you want to go tanning with us?
Yeah.
And she's not into it. I love the decency that's tapped into with these teenagers and how they're all kind of growing up before our eyes, at least in the first 2/3. And right. I like the fact that because no one is suspecting her, I think this also speaks to where I think a lot of girls in high school would go, is I think they would turn inward. I think a lot would be prone to kind of like ask those questions. And especially if nobody is making them feel bad, they're not going to have to, because they're already feeling terrible themselves. And I like so it's a different dynamic. I like the fact that she's not kind of leading the charge the way Devon Sawa did. She's really kind of rejecting it and pushing away and resisting until the pain is too much, and until she really can open up to a person who she otherwise felt like, we don't even like each other. I mean, I can understand where I wrote it down. Like, it's totally plausible that, where is it? God damn it. Where'd I wrote it down? I only have 3 pages. But it's totally, anyway, I'll just say it. It's totally plausible that like somebody who you feel that way about, you have that kind of opinion about, and who you're actually glad that your girlfriend was going to break up with, that you would just not want to have anything more to do with him. Like, because like, number one, there's the lack of a dynamic between the two, but there's also the fact that like, he just reminds you. It's just another reminder of like what the loss that you've experienced in your life. And that, here it is. If you didn't really like somebody and they kept trying to get in your face with conspiracy theories also, you'd probably get pissed off too.
And she plays that at the car very well.
Yeah, and also I like the fact that there's nuance to all of these characters. I like the fact that she doesn't get along with her sister, but then there's a very human moment where she, she doesn't have what, the bracelet, or,
Yeah.
or she has the bracelet that grandma gave to me, and the sister's just walking out, just like, with an exchange that seems really kind of like typical of like their relationship. And then she just starts reaching out immediately. And her sister reacts. There's something softens in her, and then immediately a wall has to go up because no, wait, I gotta, I'm figuring something out, and I don't really know what, and it's too embarrassing for me to share with anybody. So sorry, I need some privacy. Can you just leave me alone? And then her sister probably just thinks, I love all of this weird sliding doors, missed opportunities kind of things, because that feels like life, and that's why I really, really like this movie. That's a big part of it.
I might go as far as to say this is because the screenplay was written just by Glenn Morgan and James Wong, whereas Final Destination 1, they were rewriting a script. Glenn Morgan and James Wong are really hit and miss with me.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Final Destination 1, I like Final Destination 3, but like I fucking hated Willard remake.
Oh.
I loathed the Black Christmas remake they did. I think the one is a great premise, and that's a very missed opportunity. It's really hard to fuck up Jason Statham and Jet Li and shit, and that movie fucked up Jason Statham and Jet Li. Not the big, but this, not only is this probably their best directed film, but like they fucking wrote it with enough nuance for this kind of movie that I hate when I see a movie and I go, oh, that's a great line, that's a great beat, but too bad he didn't earn it. But I see all the beats that lead up to him going like, hey, we don't even like each other. And I'm like, one, it's fun to throw it back in, but you've built a relationship where you can throw it back in her face, and you also have grown to this new level, and where she's like going to be worried about him when he's gone, and she can even tell him, I'm going to be fucking worried about you when, oh my God.
Yeah.
So yeah, but to write all that and to also deliver on the Splatterfest, because it does deliver.
Yes.
There's some phenomenal death scenes in this.
It has one of the most memorable ones of the entire franchise for me, which is the tanning bed one.
Oh, that's definitely top 2, top 3. Also,
yeah,
it has a really long build-up, which is great.
Yes. Yeah.
Also, I don't want to touch on them for too long, but I love the fact that they're nice enough to just invite her out, but they're silly enough to be like, aren't we so nice? But like,
yeah,
they are this close to like being caricature cartoony, but like,
yeah,
they definitely play it silly and for laughs, but they also don't play them so two-dimensionally vapid. It's a very interesting line that they walk, but they're still comedic relief without being fucking cardboard. I don't know.
They're not heroines, but I don't like poo-poo them because like you even the way they're introduced with those Y's in their butts, with their fleece outfits and their underwear sticking out. It's just kind of like, okay, I feel like I know exactly who you are.
Sure.
But then we're watching them get sexually harassed by Frankie, and Frankie. Immediately my empathy goes with them.
Yes. Oh, and then by the way,
I'm so glad that they escape him.
Maybe we'll come back to him in a moment, but they continue to get harassed as they're trying to get in line, and now they're stuck in line with this guy, and now they're sitting down. He's sitting fucking motherfucker.
God.
Anyway, the tanning bed scene is phenomenal. And not only is the execution of it great, but that last shot of the 2 beds on fire, and then it cuts
coffins
to 2 coffins.
Yes.
Beautiful. It has good character development. It has good death scenes, but it also manages to have a wit about itself in a way that like 2 and 4 are generally kind of silly, but 3 has some actual wit to it. I also appreciate the buildup. Pretty much everything at the Home Depot scene, because it could just be, or whatever that Home Depot type store is, because it builds up to, I find it a little silly that like the bag of sand or whatever, like something lands on the accelerator of like a forklift, because like you actually have to turn a forklift on before you can like accelerate. But but whatever. Aside from that, there's a lot of good setup. They save the one guy, but then also she gets all the nails. The nails through the face is nuts. But once
and the fact that she's still alive.
That she's still feeling it while it's happening?
She's still alive and like twitching with like
Oh,
nails
yeah.
through her face and her hand, like fear or something.
But once again,
Oh God.
what's his nuts? McKinley reacts as if seeing someone you know die would suck, and he feels it because that's what you should do. And
that's the last time
biggest,
I'm fond of how they handled McKinley, though.
Yeah, it's quite a turn, and I don't totally buy it. However, one thing I find very interesting about him is because I know the type. I've even been this insensitive type, so I don't want to say I relate to him, but like I get it when they're at the funeral and they talk about how like death it looks at everybody equally or it's all fair, and he's like, "What equal? Like what's fair? Like these fucking Charles Manson did this and then that, and these people, but these two girls didn't do shit."
Yeah,
it's interesting about that is he absolutely has a point.
Yeah.
Now is not the right fucking time or place, sir. But
I don't mind that. He's a teenager. I don't mind.
There's
like,
a whole group of people grieving, though. This is not the right time to this is not your fucking soapbox right now. Like, this isn't the appropriate place. But I get.
Okay.
And he's too young to well, actually, people get older and they don't do that too. But like, you know.
Sure. No, you're right. On paper, you're right. Yeah, but something about that moment, I think it's because he's coming to their defense. He's being compassionate.
Sure. Everything
like
about him, the impetus is all right. It's just, you know, the timing. But anyway, like every scene leading up to, you know, his turn, like this movie has like the best, like they spend several minutes with the two of them coming there to warn him and him going,
yeah,
I don't believe you.
Yeah.
But you know what, for the sake of argument though, and then like let's really discuss it and death and control. Like this movie is the movie that plays the most with theme, and even though it's a little too on the nose about like she's a control freak and it's a little too on the nose him laying it all out, the fact that we are even discussing and playing with it, these are the kind of conversations that also would happen, even though I think they rush the rules of it all and what's happening and the distribution of that information. They don't rush, and they really play with how are we all going to react to finding out what's going on and what can we do about it and what's the point of it all. I love him in that scene, that whole Home Depot scene. And
he owns everything that comes out of his mouth. Though the reason why I pull out at the end is just because, number one, I take offense I was a kid in black, you know, and the fact that they decide to just kind of turn the knob and make him psycho because he's survived a trauma or whatever. It feels like they just kind of decided to arbitrarily make him a heavy all of a sudden. And I'm like, this was a character who actually surprised me, because again, at that memorial, like here he is talking about girls who were not in his social group, who he and Erin, his girlfriend, were actually laughing at when they were inviting Wendy to the tanning salon. And here he's able to actually kind of come to, I don't know about their defense, but to speak compassionately about them and to say, you know, like they didn't do shit to anybody. And I'm like, okay, so
but they didn't deserve it. Yeah,
exactly. But he's like, he's got enough dimension to see that, and yet he doesn't have enough dimension to kind of see that this isn't Wendy's fault and that nobody really deserves to die. I mean, I don't know. The argument he makes at the end is so uncompelling for me. That was one of the biggest things that hit a sour note for me this screening. I didn't remember it, and when I saw it, it left a bad taste in my mouth.
It is a good idea, though. This movie doesn't do it well, but I do like the idea of, instead of just death being your villain, like you create someone who becomes a third act threat so that you actually have a pseudo villain.
I think there's a movie in this franchise that does that better.
Yes, I was gonna say, but this is the first one that tries it.
Yeah,
and it's just well, he's just very upset about what happened. Therefore, and it's like enough so that like when he shows up, it already feels like I'm here to kill you. But it's not. It's not until dialogue when it's revealed. Oh wait, do I cause your death? And then it's like, oh, it's only hitting. Oh, see, we're playing it like you're already there to kill her, but you're not. Weird. Yeah,
I know it could have been directed differently, and he's a capable actor. I think
he's very capable.
It could have been done differently. Yeah.
Once again, there's an interesting accent there. I like listening to that dude talk.
He got a good timbre to his voice.
These two girls. Didn't do shit. You're dead. Oh, do I cause your death?
Oh, but also, like, that's another thing that they introduced that I was just kind of like, well, where did that come from? When here again, he speaks so compassionately about death, and then here he is in the back room of the warehouse shooting pigeons with a nail gun. Wait, and pigeons, again, a motif. But it's like, hello, Final Destination 2, but why is he shooting? Like, it feels like they're trying, again, I feel like I'm seeing what you're trying to do. You're trying to set it up that, like, he's a guy who could kill or who could be cut off. But I mean, really?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I liked the direction you took him in before, and now you're swinging in the other direction, and you didn't earn it, and I don't like it. I have another criticism for another character that I feel like they did that with.
Yeah.
Texas Battle, you mentioned, as Lewis. He's another one who just kind of turns on a dime, doesn't really even seem to have a character. It's like they needed a toxic male. I don't feel like he's the trash person of this. That's Frankie Cheeks. But I do feel like he kind of walks the line, because here this guy, when Mary Elizabeth Wendy's having her breakdown and everything in the beginning of the movie, he stands up and immediately takes a stance of just kind of like, this bitch is just trying to get attention. I'm like, where did that come from? And then like people start like a fight, like Kevin runs at him and they start a fight. And then Aaron's just kind of there and he backhands her and slaps her. Nobody ever addresses it in the rest of the movie. And this is happening in real time. This isn't in the alternate universe. This is happening in the one that they all live in subsequently. And I'm just kind of like, okay, again, with the like, like you have, you only Tony Todd we got in this movie is the devil voice, which I appreciated.
Yeah, it's a
but
nice
so we got like one black character, and here he is backhanding a white woman. It never gets discussed, it never gets addressed, and it's not really even earned. And then later they're trying to warn him like he's just one of their peer group. He's even at the memorial, just kind of like, hey, chill, you guys okay? And I'm like, who are you? I don't know who the fuck you are. You weren't written with any kind of like mindfulness. And then later when he finally dies, it feels like it's like there's an that I'm supposed to reach. He even does the telegraphing, like the thing that what's her name did when she got hit by the bus in the first one, where it's, like, I can cheat to death, I'm gonna live forever, boom,
and that
monologue. I hated it.
First of all,
I hated everything about it.
We were praising the writing earlier, but I feel like that whole monologue is blah 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 death, blah 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 death, blah 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 death. But I'm not afraid of death. Fuck death. Fuck death. Fuck death. And I just feel like I just heard the word "fuck death" like 8 times. What was that monologue about? Why? What? No. My future is this. I control this. I blah 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 blah. And then also like, hey, we're just gonna want you to play this at like a 10 the whole time. Okay, I can do that. Blah blah blah. Just. Yeah.
I mean,
and then every once in a while, though,
every once in a while, go for 10, like a level 10 the whole time. I admire him for going there. The problem is, it doesn't play. The director should have intervened and done something.
And whatever he's yelling about, the random jocks in the gym are like, yeah.
There's one guy in the background because they keep cutting to the other guys like going nuts, and there are guys lifting some pretty hefty looking equipment or working on hefty equipment, like that kind of thing. But there is one guy with his back to the camera who it looks like he's lifting 15s, like he's got a 15 in each hand. Have you ever held a 15? It's not exactly like a scream kind of thing, and he's full on going.
I didn't even notice his hands, so I have to go back and check, but I know the performance of what you're talking about.
They were tiny weights, and he was and it is bonkers. I was chuckling, but it didn't feel like I get you got me movie. No, it felt like you fucked up. you were doing so well. And now I am laughing, and I hate the character who's about to get killed. And I don't even know why. I just hate the way it was handled. I don't hate him. Yeah. I hate what you did and what you didn't do.
I like him more. I like him more in interviews talking about the movie than I like him in the movie.
He's a lovely guy.
That death also was one of the 2 what I call liquid deaths in the movie, where the swords cut the cables to some weights that magically don't instantly fall.
Yeah.
He does a thing, and then they hit his head, and even though they are heavy and they come up here, they just liquefy his head, and the skull and
Yes.
everything just turns into instant goo. That, and when
Yeah.
McKinley has a JLG lift with a sign fall on his head or fall on his body,
Yeah.
and his torso breaks, but like his body is liquefied by a
Yeah.
lift that's only about what, like 15, 20 feet in the air, but liquefies his head. I appreciate a good instant goo death.
and yet, and yet, after because one kill that I do appreciate is Frankie's.
I was actually just about to bring up Frankie.
Oh, go for it,
No,
please.
actually, I wanted to. Here's all. Well, first of all, it's a hard thing when you write a movie where you're writing a character who is supposed to be a piece of shit, right?
Yeah.
It's not like they wrote Frankie to be a guy and this actor showed up and started making misogynistic lines, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? No, we wrote
Mm-hmm.
a misogynist. We wrote a piece
Mm-hmm.
of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only thing I find interesting about his character is the fact that they're at like the girl's funeral, and he's like, is this like my fault? And like, what? And it's like, well, and it's weird. He's like, maybe me treating them like material objects made
Mm-hmm.
them, and I'm like, come on, like made them want to like, get tan and look good to impress Frankie. And then when they like, you idiot, like you're turning this around and making it about yourself. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're right. And two, you almost had a breakthrough there.
You were almost human.
Yeah, but also like you're trying and you're failing. So like,
And then you double down on your fail.
but you don't get points for fail. Yeah, it was an interesting. Yeah, so yeah, when he gets the fan blade through the head, I'm good riddance.
I like that right on the heels of the moment you just mentioned, though, that Julie does smack him. He doesn't seem to understand why, but I'm just glad somebody got to do it.
But I mean,
Because when he leans in
like,
for that kiss, and she just,
oh yeah,
ah,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
I'm just like, and then when he's of course he's the one giving the middle finger again with the middle finger, giving the middle finger in this franchise. It's a thing.
For the life of me, I never
Now,
understand. I know men can be goofy and stupid in
yeah.
their degree of misogyny, where they think the cockiness but when you literally have like the necklace of a girl and you're like,
Oh God.
I don't know. There's no girl out there who's like, well, my panties are coming off now. Like, did you see the way he licked that naked girl necklace? Oh my God. I can't wait for him to fuck me. Like that's not a, yeah. So
No.
he's a fascinating character.
But we also get to see not as much of him as we do of the kind of despicable characters in the rest of the franchise. Like he doesn't occupy a lot of screen time.
And also, and yet, he has more dimension than anyone in the fourth movie.
Are we moving on to 4?
No, I'm pretty much almost done. That would have been a good transition. No, there's just, I just like to kind of. Yeah. I just kind of like to chronicle like when each movie has like a new thing. Like first we had the little visual clues, and the second one's like, well, now we have these specific flashes, and then the third one's like, you know what? Let's just rip off The Omen. I'm actually okay with it. It's a fun little callback to The Omen where we're gonna have photos now.
Yeah,
it's not just about, oh, I have like a vague. Well, first of all, because in one, all it does is tell you who's going to die. Here's the thing that says Todd. Okay. 2 just has some vague, like, oh, there's an ambulance, what's going to happen or whatever. But like 3 really leans into, here's how we need to decipher how they're going to die. And that just makes it interesting as far as like the omen and having like the little line or something. So if you're deciphering the order already from who sat on the roller coaster and who died first, whatever, at least now we're the new element. And it feels more like a new element than just the next clue. It's like, now we're deciphering photos. I'm like, okay, we're doing something new here. I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
The big takeaway I have from this movie is not takeaway, but it did something interesting where because we know after the first movie that you can defeat death, and then this cycle will just keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But this was the first movie to not just have like the characters go to Paris and die, but to have them get on a subway and then find out we're going to do the opening scene as an ending scene, and you're all going to die.
Yeah.
That's something new. Unfortunately, it's almost mean because in this movie, you can come back to that point and get off the roller coaster. You can get off the plane. You cannot get on the freeway. But in this one, they already got on the doors, and this is like the end of the like. What a mean thing for death to do, to give you a vision of something you have no way of escaping. There is no alternative. In fact, I love that we don't see it play out for real. We cut to and just hear like the train starting to have an accident, and it's just her fucking face of fear of like knowing what's about to happen.
And that's enough if you've got Mary Elizabeth Winstead too.
Yeah.
But this is actually one instance that made me really miss DVD too, because I streamed these. The first 4 are on HBO Max, and I'm doing a trial right now. And the 5th one is like $3 on Redbox. But I remember watching the DVD extras and watching just like a special that was like just on that scene. And you know, every now and then, whereas like the student of filmmaking in you just kind of like gets to flex a bit, and you get to really kind of appreciate something. It can be a movie you like, or even this has happened to me with movies that I dislike. But when you actually get to see the execution of a particular scene, the filming of the filming, as it were, and you see how many people are working on it, it makes you appreciate pretty much any movie, even movies you dislike. But this is a movie that I liked, and what I loved was there was this special that was basically what I took from it was the hardest thing to achieve in that scene was the close-up on her eye or on her face, and the director wanted a single tear to be streaming down her face, and she wanted to do it organically. She didn't want, you know, like a dropper or anything like that. And some actors, it's hard enough to cry, you know, like if you're Kara Smith. But I'm sorry. I really hate that coming out scene on Dawson's Creek. Anyway, but what you gonna do? But it's you know, for some actors it's hard to cry. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I mean, I'm sure it's not easy, but on top of crying, like just to get it coming out of like cue it out of one eye and just one tear, and it took them a long time. They kept like action and like zooming in on her face or zooming out of her face, and she just couldn't make it happen. She felt like she was failing the whole crew and everything like that. And I'm like, oh my god, like this is it's a moment I was just kind of like, I'm in it, and I don't even think about the execution of it. Here I'm watching it take, I don't remember how long it took, but it took a time. Finally they got it, obviously. And to know that it was all organic and that she had to work that hard just to get something technical. It's not even an emotional scene. It's literally supposed to just be her shock from the post, whatever you go through after your premonition, the post premonition phase. And so I appreciated that. Also, we haven't really talked about it, and we don't have to go into it. I just want it to go mentioned. I love the opening sequence on the roller coaster with this movie. If you've ever been on a roller coaster and ever had even a question of the lap bar, or I don't know if it's above your shoulders, the shoulder bar or whatever, if it's fluctuating. I remember being on something at Six Flags once where I didn't even get to check if it was, because I kept letting it go and it kept going too high for me to let it go anymore because I was afraid it would just go like that. But I think I tried it like as we were like on the first incline. I don't remember what roller coaster it was, but something with like that. And I was so terrified that I just pressed it against and I didn't move. I didn't have any fun. I just clenched and just waited and prayed. I locked my legs to the seat and I just prayed I wasn't going to get flung out and that I wasn't going to die. I was probably fine the whole time. But you know, there are deaths. And watching that movie, I felt like, okay, this is how you evoke, even the build up to it. It was like similar to Devon Sawa with all of the clickety clack and all of the this and the that.
Oh yeah.
With Mary Elizabeth Winstead
and
with all of the
playing
ambiance.
all of it so well.
Yes, she is.
She
Yes, she
sells you on
is.
all of it.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's executed, and the film really helps it along too. Like, I mean, it's not, it's, her work is unquestionable, but so is everybody else's in that sequence. That's one of the reasons why for a long time it was one of my favorites, because I just always saw the color red during that
yeah,
sequence. And I love that, like, right after it, everything is blue. Like, I was just kind of like, somebody's taking care of me. Somebody put some thought in this. So yeah,
I
that's
forget the
one.
guy's name. His name's Jesse Moss, who plays her boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
I know he's
Jay.
been in plenty of stuff, but I feel like, no offense to him, I feel like he plays assholes. Tucker and Dale versus Evil, and he's an asshole in that movie.
Oh my God, that is him.
He and he's in Ginger Snaps.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
Yeah,
Canadian.
and
Yeah.
he plays not the nicest dudes, and enough so that it's in my brain when I see him. I go, oh, okay, you're gonna be an asshole, and I'm like, oh, but
Mm-hmm.
you're playing this good. Like I'm not. I am overcoming your IMDb history.
Yeah.
So good job for you. Very good job for you. Um,
Yeah.
no, one thing that threw me off about this movie at first, and four does it much worse, so it gets better retroactively. But the first and the second movie both introduce us to our leads, and we get to know a little bit before we get to the airport, before we get to
Yeah.
the freeway. And I remember finding this one going like, and we're just starting at the fair, and I'm like, okay, this feels like it's a sequel, and we need to rush and get to the thing. Or maybe it was like we need to save money, so like let's cut the location and just have everyone, let's start at the carnival, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
million things that happen between writing and producing, and you know, consolidating locations because it's cheaper and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
I love that we don't just go, hi, I'm Sally, hi, I'm Wendy, now we're gonna go on the coaster. We spend a lot of time meeting the characters
Yeah.
and taking the photo up the
Mm-hmm.
ass and like and up the girl's skirt, and then like, you know, I'm gonna fucking break up with them after graduation,
Mm-hmm.
meeting Frankie and the girls, and then going up to the coaster and building up her apprehension. Then we get to know them more while they're in line, and we're seeing Frankie harass the girls in line. So much
Mm-hmm.
happens before we finally get on the goddamn coaster that I'm actually impressed
Yeah.
that even though it starts off with a bang, it actually still doesn't. It takes a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
Coaster execution is pretty well done. Um,
Yes.
it does that little thing every once in a while. And again, it's hard to want realism from this franchise. But again, like when Devon Sawa's buddy leans forward over a curtain, and then even his weight, it doesn't make it loop around three times. Doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to me. In this one, when Frankie drops his camera, if the
Mm.
strap hits the track first, the gravity of the camera would have it fall down, but instead it magically stays and then just loops. I don't understand how that happened.
Yeah.
One could argue it's the magic of death because, you know, water does not go forward and back. But for
Yeah.
some reason, when water's on a surface, I can buy the magic of death, but I can't buy things looping magically. I don't, and it looks silly to me because we all know what it looks like when something falls, and that's not what happens when things fall. Anyway, coaster's
Death as a
awesome.
conscious entity is always a hard sell if it's invisible, or even if it's a shadow creature or whatever. Yeah.
I
It's
want to
it's
mention
tough.
two more little things, and then I'm going to move on. One
Mm-hmm.
little thing: her sister is played by Amanda Crew, who at the time wasn't aware of her in anything, but between Sex Drive and Silicon Valley, I've become quite a fan. And when you go back and look at someone, you can maybe appreciate their work more because you're a fan of their process. She's
Yeah.
pretty good. I quite like her in this movie. My only problem is the reveal that she was the one. She and her friends were also on the coaster.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how you go home and live with your sister and never fucking talk about the fact that you were on the coaster and got off and that the coaster fell off and died and everyone's talking about how you had premonitions, and you
Sure.
never mention this to your sister at all.
No
And
matter how not close you are. Yeah.
yeah, I just don't. I mean, it's an interesting third act twist, but I just don't buy it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy her silence. It just feels a bit sloppy to me.
I get that.
Yeah, and then uh, much like how we've had our Hitchcocks and our Lutons, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate that not only do we have a villain with the last name McKinley, but the last two train stops are Booth and Oswald. And I'm like,
I didn't notice
mhm.
that.
And
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
lovely.
good on you, movie. This is fun.
I just noticed like that you with you mentioning like the this crop of Canadian actors who went on to do other things, I didn't notice ever that Dustin Milligan is an extra who's sitting behind the boyfriend and the girlfriend, the ones who die, in the front. Dustin Milligan is from Extract and most famously from Schitt's Creek right now. And also Corey Monteith from Glee is an extra in it. When Julia is talking to a row of boys at the carnival at the end, or the whatever it is, the fair, the fireworks display at the end, she's talking to a row of boys, and the tallest one is Corey Monteith, and he's in IMDb.
He must have been like a baby then.
He was a baby, but he was always doing background in Canada for a while before Glee, because I saw him on Smallville. He was on an episode of Smallville where he played handsome frat boy, and I was just kind of like, oh my God. And I don't even remember if he had lines in that. He was just kind of like, in the background. And also the ride attendant the kid with the long hair and the strong jaw who's like, getting everybody on and then gets them off at the end, is named Harris Allen, and I know him because he was on Queer as Folk. He played Hunter. So yeah, a lot of actors in the background who have legit careers now.
Well, it's funny when in Final Destination in Final Destination 1, Devon Sawa's buddy's brother is Brendan Fair, who was in Roswell, and went on to he had small parts. He was in he was random, but in the Cuban Missile Crisis, he's one of the officers in X-Men First Class. But he's been in a lot, and it's just fun to see him be like the brother in 2 scenes in Final Destination. Because first of all, I loved Roswell, so I'm like, wait a minute, Brendan Fair's in this.
Yeah, it was a lot of lovely little surprises, like in this movie. Like even with the criticisms I had a pretty good time.
Yeah, I have less of a good time with the next movie.
Jesus Christ.